Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Esberg VA here, and welcome to part 1 of What If Deku Was a Power Ranger. Just wanted to greet you guys by saying, sit back and relax. You're in for a treat. And so, we begin. Katsuki Bakugo and Izuku Midoriya stood in front of the entrance to a wooded area in their neighborhood. The woods were surrounded by a metal fence, and the front entrance was closed by a sliding gate. Over the front gate was a sign that read in bold letters, "Off limits. Do not enter due to high risk of injury." At the bottom of the sign, it read in giant red letters, "This means you, stupid kids." Izuku Midoriya was shaking with nervous energy. "I don't think this is a good idea, Kachan." Katsuki Bakugo just smiled at Midoriya. The ashen blonde had a mischievous gleam in his eyes. "Midoriya, are you gonna be a wimp forever? You're 4 years old now, almost 5. Quit acting like a baby. We've played in this area many times. Nothing has ever happened. Now, come on." The blonde pulled the green-haired boy through a hole in the fence, and the two boys ventured into the woods. While they walked toward the middle of the woods, they talked about what quirks they'd like to receive. Both boys were near the age that their quirk factors should activate. Both boys were very anxious to know what their powers would be, but for today, they would have to be satisfied with playing heroes. Everything was going fine, and the two boys were having a good time. Suddenly, a loud rustling ripped through the otherwise quiet forest. "Did you hear that, Kachan?" "It was probably just a squirrel or something. Quit being such a baby, Midoriya." Bakugo would regret these angry words to Midoriya. It turned out the green-haired boy had every right to be scared. Appearing from the foliage were very strange-looking humanoid creatures. They were gray in color except for their eyes, which were a sinister red. Their bodies seemed to be made of clay. The creatures would shed a powdery substance every time they moved. They never spoke. Instead, they made a high-pitched mumbling sound. There was a total of 6 creatures in the clearing now. Midoriya started to freak out. "Are these guys villains?" Bakugo sneered at this question. "What kind of question is that? You can tell by the look of these guys that they're up to no good." "I don't think they're guys, Kachan. In fact, I don't think they're human." "No duh, Sherlock." Bakugo then pointed his finger and yelled at the clay creatures. "Listen, you clay brains! You'd better not mess with us!" The clay creatures did not seem intimidated at all. 3 of the creatures advanced on Bakugo. The trio grabbed the blonde and tried to run off with him. Bakugo fought back, but it was no use. The small boy was spirited, but the creatures were too strong. As Midoriya watched the scene, the small timid boy felt a surge of emotion. Bakugo may have been a coarse individual, but he was Midoriya's friend. With this thought, the green-eyed boy felt a surge of power flow through his tiny body. The boy looked at his hands and saw that they were glowing with green energy. "Stop!" The clay men looked at Midoriya. "Let my friend go right now!" The greenette raised his hands into the air. He faced his palms toward the clay men. Midoriya then gave a loud shout and forced all the surging energy in him through his hands. The result was a burst of green energy that flew from Midoriya's hands and hit the clay men in the chests. The 3 creatures were reduced to piles of gray dust. Seeing what just happened, the other 3 clay men decided to attack Midoriya. The burst of power that Midoriya had used was gone. The green-haired boy had dropped to his knees and was breathing heavily, sweat pouring down his tiny forehead. Bakugo was shocked and angry at having been grabbed. The spiky-haired boy quickly looked up to see that the clay men had decided to attack Midoriya. Without thinking, Bakugo let out a powerful scream. The boy became surrounded by an aura of red energy. The energy took the shape of a red T-Rex head surrounding his right hand. Bakugo jabbed his hand toward the clay men. The T-Rex head flew at the 3 clay men running toward Midoriya. Bakugo jabbed his hand toward the clay men. The T-Rex head flew at the 3 clay men running toward Midoriya. The T-Rex head opened its jaws wide and crunched down on the putties. The creatures were vaporized when the T-Rex jaws closed. Both boys were on the ground and were breathing heavily. They wondered if their quirks had just awakened. If they had, the 2 thought, then they were awesome. As the boys tried to catch their breaths, they saw a flash of light and heard a sudden boom. From the bright light came the figure of a man in blue armor with a large sword on his back. The man looked around the area. He looked at the 2 boys struggling to catch their breaths and the piles of gray dust. The armored man walked over to one of the dust piles and pinched some of the dust between his fingers. "This is definitely putty dust." The blue-clad man then looked directly at the 2 boys and asked one question. "What happened here, boys?" Most people would have seen just two exhausted boys laying in a forest clearing, but the armored man saw more. To his eyes, these two boys were emitting energy. This was not just any energy. The man could sense that it was grid energy. You look familiar. Who are you, Blue Plate? That's not polite, Kachan. Besides, don't you recognize him? That's the hero, Ninjor. You know, the one who works with All Might? Oh, yeah. He's that weirdo you see in the background sometimes. I would not call myself a weirdo. But yes, I am Ninjor. Now, can you boys tell me what happened here? The two boys sat up and told Ninjor who they were and what happened. They explained how they were attacked by 6 clay men, and their quirks activated. Midoriya told the man that he got green energy blast, and Kachan got a dinosaur head. We aren't bad guys, are we? I mean, we were protecting ourselves, and we didn't mean to explode those guys, plus I don't think they were human. Don't be a wimp, Midoriya. Those guys attacked us, and they got what was coming to them. End of story. What makes you think they weren't human, young man? Midoriya paused for a moment. The green-eyed boy felt unease being this close to a real-life hero. After all, he had only seen heroes from a distance, but there was one standing right in front of him. Finally, Midoriya answered Ninjor in a trembling voice. I can't explain it, sir. I just had a feeling that was the case. Ninjor mused over this and the sight of them for a moment. Finally, the armored man spoke. You are right, Midoriya, was it? Those beings were not human. They are foot soldiers created from clay. They are created to do their master's bidding. Once they are defeated, they dissolve back into the clay they were made from. So, you two do not need to feel sorry about destroying the putties. The two boys were amazed at this. Also, those powers you used were not quirks. The powers you used came from the Morphin Grid. The Morphin what now? The Morphin Grid. But that is not important right now. What is important is that the energy you two are emitting is very unstable. I would guess that it is because you two somehow gained direct access to the grid. That needs to be addressed. Right now. Ninjor walked over to the boys and placed one hand on each of the boys' shoulders. A dark blue energy surrounded the armored hero. This energy then surrounded the boys. After a few minutes, the fluctuating auras around the two boys stabilized. The boys stood up straighter and their exhaustion faded away. A symbol then appeared on each of the boys' arms. Both symbols were in the shape of a circle that glowed in the same shade as their auras, but the image of each was different. Bakugo's was a T-Rex head, and Midoriya's was a claw of some sort. Go, what are these things? My mom will kill me if she sees I got a tattoo. My mom won't like it either, sir. Those are not tattoos. They are power seals. You see, most grid users like yourselves access the grid with mechanical devices of some sort. So they only have access to the grid when wearing their armor, like I am right now. Since you two can access the grid directly, I gave you these seals to limit the amount of energy you have access to for now. They will also conceal you from foot soldiers like the putties and other Morphin Grid users, at least from a distance. And do not worry, boys. Only individuals connected to the Morphin Grid will be able to see those seals. Both Midoriya and Bakugo let out a huge sigh of relief. Neither boy was looking forward to explaining to their mothers a guy in blue armor gave them tattoos. You two are very powerful. Having this power will make you a target. If you two are up for it, I will train you in how to use these powers you have received. What do you say? Powers? You mean we have more than one? You certainly do. A universe of power has just opened to you. But understand, those with this power must stand up to evil of all kinds. Villains will come after you to take your power, so you must get strong enough to keep that from happening. The boys both agreed and asked Ninjor to train them. Ninjor agreed to become their master, but they had to get their parents' permission first. After all, both boys were still very young. Ninjor had the boys call their parents. Ninjor then told the parents who he was and that the boys had wandered into a villain attack. Well, to say the parents were very alarmed to hear this would be an understatement. Ninjor told the boys' parents that he had stopped the villain and their sons had been very brave. He also told them that their quirks had activated due to the stress of the incident. He then gave the parents the address of a hospital. He told them that the boys had received no injuries, but that the authorities wanted to make sure all was well. The parents could come to the address to meet their children and the doctors to discuss their quirks. All three parents were confused, but were happy to hear that their boys were okay. Bakugo's mom yelled for a few minutes before agreeing. Midoriya and Bakugo became confused by Ninjor's conversations with their parents. Hey, you said we didn't have quirks, so why tell our parents that we do? Yeah, aren't heroes supposed to tell the truth? Listen, boys, the Morphin Grid is not common knowledge. Information about it must be kept secret for everyone's safety. I will explain more on this later, but for now, I ask that you trust me. Both boys were suspicious of the fact that this well-known hero felt the need to lie, but the boys agreed to trust him. After all, the hero had fixed whatever was going on with them. Ninjor told the boys to stand close to him. The hero and the boys disappeared in a flash of light. The next moment, the three had arrived at the hospital. Ninjor took them in to be checked out by the doctors. Inko Midoriya and Mr. and Mrs. Bakugo arrived shortly after that. Inko fussed over Midoriya. Mitsuki Bakugo smacked little Katsuki on the head and berated him for getting into so much trouble. Meanwhile, Ninjor had gone to a conference room in another part of the hospital. Waiting in the room were Principal Nezu and Recovery Girl. This video was sponsored by Honey. Honey is a free browser add-on available on Google, Opera, Firefox, Safari, if it's a browser. It has Honey. Honey automatically saves you money when you check out on sites like Amazon, Papa John's, and Kohl's. Wherever you shop, it's a good chance that Honey can save you money. All you have to do when you're checking out at these big sites is click that little orange button, and it will scan the entire internet and find discount codes for you. It takes 2 clicks to install Honey. Now, anytime you check out, Honey will scan the whole internet and find those coupon codes for you. If there's a coupon code, they will find it. And if there's not a coupon code, you can rest assured that you are getting the best price possible. If you install Honey right now, you can save so much money on your online shopping doing nothing. There's no reason not to install Honey. It takes 2 clicks, 10 million people use it, and it has 100,000 5-star reviews. Unless you hate money, you should install Honey. Use the link in the description to start saving money now. Now, let's get back to it. A dog? A bear? I'm the principal! Thank you for calling us, Ninjor. Can you update us on how your search has gone? Sure thing, sir. I was searching in the area where I felt a strong grid signature. When I arrived, I found 2 young boys. Both had a direct connection to the grid. They defeated 6 putties that tried to kidnap them. This is probably what awakened their grid connection. This makes a total of 6 such children that have been found to date, correct? That is correct. You have explained that the Morphin Grid is connected to many dimensions, and that you yourself hail from one of these dimensions. What I want to know is how common are individuals with such direct connection in other realities? They are very rare. Several other realities I have visited do have multiple planets and races that can harness the grid, but a given reality would be lucky to produce 5 every few generations. That is interesting. Why do you think our dimension has been blessed with 6 so close together? Understand, Principal Nezu. I may know more about the grid than anyone on this world, but even I do not understand everything about it. You could spend 1,000 lifetimes studying the grid, but still have more to learn. Then, can you give us your best guess? My working theory is that it has something to do with the quirks found in this world. This world's connection to the Morphin Grid is new. From what I can tell, these powers you call quirks have been here longer than the grid has. These quirks have drastically altered the human population of this dimension. These alterations may have created individuals that are better hosts to the growing Morphin Grid. By better hosts, what do you mean by that? You have 5 seconds. These kids might be young, but each of them has demonstrated amounts of grid power that are unheard of. I have been connected to the grid for millions of years, as you both know. I can perform many of the acts that these children did, but learning those abilities took a lot of time. Do you think they're dangerous? How worried should we be? If you are worried about them becoming villains, that is a possibility. But from what I can tell, each of the 6 have a strong moral compass that leans towards justice. If it's their powers, then yes, that does need to be seen about. I place grid seals on the children for their own safety. If I hadn't done that, then their tiny bodies would have become oversaturated with power, and they would have expired. Well, that's some good news. How do these seals work exactly? The seal acts like a limiter and restricts the amount of energy that flows into the children from the morphin grid. The seals are only temporary. I will need to come up with a more long-term solution. Ninjor paused for a moment to consider his next words carefully. The most important thing will be training. The putty activity tells me there is a mastermind at work here. This fact could lead the children to being corrupted and turned into a threat to all dimensions. Such is the danger with any child. Well, to ensure that does not happen, we only have one solution. Ninjor, the children shall be placed under your tutelage. I already planned on doing that, sir. It is important that I start training the children and controlling their grid powers soon. The seals I placed on them will not hold forever. I will prepare to gather them together in a centralized location so that we may better monitor them. That may be a mistake, Nezu. You think so? Yes, I do. The best course of action is to train them separately for now. Let them get used to their new powers before they come together. Can I ask, why do you want to do that? Grid users always come in sets or teams. These individuals are known as Power Rangers. Rangers grow stronger when together. Teamwork is literally the source of their power. These children have all the marks of being Rangers. Bringing the children together right now could be dangerous for them and everyone around them. That plan does come with its own dangers, but I agree. Taking the children away from their families at such a young age could have negative effects on them. That could turn them into the threats to society we fear they may become. That sounds like a good plan. We will leave the training to you for now, Ninjor. I will be checking in on you and the children to ensure that everything is going well. Thank you, sir. Nezu said he would deal with any paperwork that needed doing. The Mouse Man also said he would talk to Mrs. Midoriya and the Bakugos about the training program for the two boys. That weekend, the boys began their training under Ninjor. The armored man decided that he would train the two boys together. Ninjor knew that there was a risk with this, but he figured that the grid had a reason for awakening these boys' powers together. So he would keep them together and see what happened. The next 10 years came and went. Both Bakugo and Midoriya trained hard to master their powers. Both boys hoped to use this training to become heroes like their idol, All Might. Over the years, Midoriya and Bakugo became good friends, and fierce rivals because of their joint training. The boys learned quickly. This fact surprised Ninjor. The next time we see Midoriya and Bakugo is 10 years later, when the boys are seated in their middle school classroom. A teacher stood at the podium in front of the classroom holding a stack of papers. I should hand out these career aptitude tests so you can decide what path you want to follow in high school. The teacher then throws the test in the air. But what's the point? I know you all want to go on the hero track. The class then starts cheering and showing off their quirks. The teacher reminds the students that they are not allowed to use their quirks in the open. As the cheering continued, one voice cut through the crowd. Teach, don't lump me and Izuku in with these extras. The two of us are destined to become great heroes, but most of these losers will be lucky to end up as sidekicks to a busted D-lister. The class turned to look at Bakugo. The sly-looking blonde was reclined in his seat with his feet on the desk. The class hurled insults at the spiky blonde, berating him for being so full of himself. Kachan, is that the behavior that a future hero should have? I think that several of our classmates could make it as top heroes. The class turned to the back of the room and saw Izuku Midoriya. The green-eyed boy was looking at Bakugo with a look of strong disapproval. The class thanked Midoriya for standing up for them. I see both Midoriya and Bakugo have applied to UA. That makes sense. You both have high test scores and have aced the mock test. Yes, we have, Teach. And we will be the first students from this school to attend UA and become heroes that surpass All Might. The red-eyed teen then jumps up on his desk and raises his fist into the air. The class ended a short time later. Midoriya was packing up his book bag. Bakugo walked over and asked if Midoriya was ready to go yet. Before the green-haired boy could answer, a bunch of their classmates walked by. Their classmates asked if the blonde and brunette wanted to hang out after school. Bakugo replied they had training today, and their master would not like it if they ditched. Midoriya then told the boys that they might be able to hang out tomorrow. Bakugo and Midoriya then left the school and headed toward their training location for today. The boys walked along an unfamiliar street. They had been told by their master Ninjor to take this road to meet him at the training location. As they walked, Midoriya hit Bakugo with a question. Did you have to be so hard on our classmates, Kachan? The ashen blonde did not speak for a few moments. Grr, I wasn't being hard, Scales. I was being honest. You remember when we were attacked by the putties as kids? Yeah, how could I forget? That was the day our lives changed forever. Even though those clay brains were only foot soldiers, they could have killed us or taken us prisoner. Now imagine you were dealing with a human being with drives or desires of his own. Do you really think most of our classmates could stand up to that kind of evil? You have a point, I guess. Midoriya gave Bakugo a friendly smile. You know, sometimes I forget that under that harsh, prideful shell beats a compassionate heart. Shut up, Scales! You keep saying touching crap like that and I will crush your head, you hear me? Bakugo often called Midoriya by this nickname, Scales, because Ninjor had told them that Midoriya had the mark of the Dragon Zord. The boys stopped their friendly banter. Both sensed that something was amiss. The next moment, the boys were surrounded by putties. The clay-bodied soldiers circled the two boys in a frenzy of jumping and arm-waving. Both boys dropped their book bags and assumed a fighting pose. Looks like there are about 20 of them. Want to see who can beat the most? Heh, you're on. Let's fight, you pea-brained idiots. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in this story thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, we've got a second channel called Anime Deep Dive. Anime Deep Dive goes deep into the facts and lore of a wide variety of anime. It's sure to expand your weeb knowledge for all kinds of series, guaranteed. On top of that, we have a third channel called We the Celestials Naruto What Ifs. It's what we do on this channel already, but in the vast world and lore of Naruto. And that stuff's deep. Go check it out if you're in the mood for some jutsu action. I'd like to let you all know, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. If you're perhaps interested in what we do here at WTC, then I would like to extend out an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being, we only accept members 16 and older to join our crew. You can find us on our Discord, which you can locate in the description below. Our Discord is an all-around fantastic place to be. Whether you're a fan or looking to join our band of misfits, all you gotta do is hit up the recruitment server and sign up for whichever category of work fulfills your interests. We're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video. So, thank you all for watching, and have a great day.